As you all know, Seth Lewis has been abducted by aliens, so I will be taking his place tonight. My name is Gorman Lewis, if you weren't aware, and Father Martin was going to do this episode, but he's trying to negotiate with Ozymandias, and that has proven difficult. So, I will be telling the tale of Pearl Lusk and the picture box. Pearl Lusk entered New York City with the highest of hopes. Maybe she was inspired by the detective novels and adventure stories of her youth. But as she went into the Big Apple with its high skyscrapers and bright lights, she thought that this was the place to make a name for herself. She ran into some good fortune. She became a saleswoman at a department store and was even able to get herself her own apartment. And she was doing well. She met a man named Alan LaRue who offered her on a date, but she turned him down because she didn't want to accept any invitations from strangers. But as the months rolled on, she knew that there was going to be a deadline to her happiness, for on Christmas Eve, all the saleswomen were going to be thrown out of their jobs. So she did her best to enjoy herself while she could. She bought her some makeup, some dresses, and when the day arrived and she was again thrown out into the streets, she decided that she was going to need help, and she called Alan LaRue. Now, Alan was a mysterious man. He wore a long trench coat, and he had an otherworldly feeling to him, as if he was someone who had stepped out of a picture book. And as the two of them sat down and had dinner together, and she told him her story, he seemed to sympathize with her, and when she was finished, he said that he might be able to help her. For he explained that he was a private detective who was investigating a jewel thief, a Olga Trapani. Now, he needed someone to follow her, and he couldn't do it because she recognized him, and he was wondering if Pearl would be willing to do the job, and he would pay her handsomely. So she agreed, and she first was taken to Olga's workplace. And she went and she looked at a picture of Olga and memorized her and her the kind of clothes she wore. And she said that she could recognize her in a crowded street. So then Alan took her to his house, and he showed her the gadget that he was going to fix her up with. He called it the picture box, and what it was a camera that was hidden inside a almost like present, like Christmas present. And it had a little wire at the end of it and a little thing where the camera could take the photo, a little hole, an opening. And he said all she had to do was pull this, and it would take a picture of Olga that would be X-rayed, so that they could see inside her clothing where they believed she was keeping the jewels. So Pearl went on to a bus where Olga happened to be on at the same time. They had been following her and knew her route home at this point. And she lifted up the picture box and snapped the photo. And she went back to Alan, and he said that, unfortunately, the picture hadn't taken and that they were going to have to do it again. And he brought her a more high-tech version of the picture box, which was bigger and even heavier and had a nice long wire at the end of it. So Pearl went to the train this time and followed Olga. And when they stepped out onto the train station, Pearl pulled back the string, and instead of a snap, there was a loud bang, and Pearl fell down onto the floor, and she looked over and saw that Olga's leg was bleeding, and she was lying on the ground too. And Pearl looked around for a policeman and told her that at the same time she was snapping the photo, someone had shot that girl. But they looked into it, and Olga told the police everything, that it hadn't been that girl, but it had been her husband, and that somehow he had managed to outsmart the police. So here is what really was happening. Pearl had been given a box that actually contained a sawed-off rifle, and so when she pulled that wire, it pulled the trigger and shot the gun. In fact, Alan LaRue was not Alan LaRue, but Alphonse Rocco. And Alphonse Rocco had been married to Olga. And Olga and them had this sort of disagreement with each other. He had a strange tendency towards violence and putting a knife to her throat and threatening to slit it. And she tried to run away from him, but she had gotten shot once before, and he was constantly stalking her, and she had told the police, but they weren't able to do anything. And the police finally did track down Alan, or actually, I should say Alphonse, to upper state New York, and there was a shootout, and he was killed. But Pearl and Olga ended up becoming best friends over this incident, and Olga never had any ill will towards her. And at the end of this tale, I suppose you could say the moral might be not to trust strangers, or that even from the worst of things, good can occur, like shooting someone could still make that person their best friends, depending on the circumstance. Or, you know what, maybe this is just another story to put on the shelf of the Fireside Tales. And I must say, although Harold says these stories are outrageous, they seem pretty believable. I don't know. I do look good, though, in the Fireside Tales uniform, don't I? I actually think it fits me well.